بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today we shall discuss part 1 on Umm Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, which was one of the wives of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After the demise of Zainab bint Khuzaymah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam married Umm Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Umm Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha is a nickname. Her real name was Hind, and she was from the family, or she was from a very noble family. She had a very noble family background and a very noble family lineage. Her father was known for his generosity, and her mother's name was Aika, from the tribe of Bani Firas. The first marriage of Umm Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha was with a very esteemed companion and one of the cousin brothers, who was also the foster brother of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was Abdullah bin Abdul Asad, and both Abdullah bin Abdul Asad and Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, they accepted Islam in the early stages, in the beginning stages, when there was a lot of persecution, aggression, and oppression towards the Muslims. Both husband and wife first migrated to Habsha, and whilst in Habsha, they had a child named Salamah. So the child's name was Salamah. And it is a tradition among the Arabs to nickname themselves based on their children. So the mother, Hind, was now known as Umm Salamah. Salamah, Umm Salamah. And the father was now known as Abu Salamah. So the father of Salamah and the mother of Salamah. Both husband and wife also migrated to Medina Munawwara. However, the incident of migration towards Medina Munawwara is a troublesome incident, because this incident took place in such a way that each and every single member, husband, wife, mother, father, and son, they were separated. Umm Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she narrates this incident herself. She says, when my husband Abu Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu intended to migrate towards Medina Munawwara, he prepared the camel placed our belongings on top of the camel, grabbed the reins of the camel, and started walking with the camel as we were mounted on the back. When my husband's tribe and his clan, Banu Mughira, when they were informed of us wanting to migrate, they stopped us. They grabbed the reins of the camel and they asked, "Where are you going?" So we expressed our intention of migration. At that point, my husband's tribe, my husband's clan, Banu Mughira, said to Salamah radiallahu anha that the tribe of Banu Mughira was the tribe of Salamah radiallahu anha. So they stopped the camel and they said to Abu Salamah that, "Where are you going?" And once they found out that they are both mother and husband, mother and father, and son are on their way to Medina Munawwara and migrate there permanently, Banu Mughira, the tribesmen, they stopped them and they said that Salamah is our daughter. And because she's our daughter, we will not allow her to leave with you. She must stay behind. So forcefully, they kept Salamah and her child behind. And Abu Salamah then proceeded with his journey and he continued. So on the one hand, the tribe of Salamah radiallahu anha forcefully kept one of their members behind. And when the tribe of Abu Salamah, who was Abdul Asad, or Banu Abdul Asad, when they found out that this had happened, they wanted their member, which was Salamah, the son of Salamah, to be with them. So Salamah's tribe kept the wife behind, and Abu Salamah's tribe kept Salamah behind. Now Abu Salamah had already left to Medina Munawwara. The wife was separated from her husband, and now the child is being separated from both his mother, and he was already separated from his father. So like this, 1 year passed. The son was away from his mother and his father. And on a side note, in those day and ages, there was something called the tribal system. The tribal system would function as courts. If there was any need to pass judgment, if there was any internal or external matters, usually the tribes, they would settle those matters and resolve those issues among themselves. The tribes would grant protection to their members, grant assistance to their members. So tribes and clans had a very powerful influence on society. So 1 year passed like this, and after 1 year, the uncle of Salamah radiallahu anha met Salamah radiallahu anha. And every single day, she would go to the outskirts of Medina Munawwara and she would cry. So her condition had physically deteriorated and mentally deteriorated. And the effects of her condition were then seen by her uncle. So her uncle then put a request in to the tribes that the child should be made to join with his mother. And once that child was joined with his mother, that's when Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anha immediately took the child and she set off to go join Abu Salamah, her husband, in Medina Munawwara. So she had traveled and she had left her home, and after traveling 3, 4, 5 miles, she met Uthman bin Mad'un radiyallahu ta'ala anhu at the station of Tan'im. And Uthman bin Mad'un radiyallahu ta'ala anhu asked Salamah that, where are you going? So she informed him that I'm going to go meet my husband Abu Salamah in Medina Munawwara. Then he asked, are you going alone? She said, yes. So Uthman bin Talha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, I will escort you. And this was prior to Uthman bin Talha accepting Islam. So Uthman bin Talha, he would grab the reins of the camel, make the camel kneel down, make the camel sit, and would allow Salamah and her son to mount the camel. And Salamah radiallahu ta'ala narrates that Uthman bin Talha radiallahu ta'ala was so noble and he was so righteous that when he would make the camel kneel down, when he would make the camel sit, he would look away from us. And he would not intrude in our space. Immediately he would go to the side and look for shade under a tree and give us our space and not intrude in my private space. Now keep in mind, this was before the revelation of hijab, before the revelation of segregation. This was his condition of righteousness and condition of piety. So nonetheless, the journey continued, and with the help of Uthman bin Talha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala reached her husband sound and safe. And once they reached Bani Amr bin Auf, at that point Uthman bin Talha said that your husband is here. And he made salam and then he left. After migrating to Medina Munawwara, Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha had 3 more children. 2 girls and 1 boy. The boy's name was Umar and the girls' names were Durra and Zainab radiyallahu ta'ala anhunna. The husband of Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, his name was Abu Salamah, just as it was mentioned. After participating in the battle of Uhud, he was injured and wounded. As a result of these injuries and wounds, eventually this led to his demise and he passed away in the 4th year of Hijrah. Before his passing away, he and his wife, Salamah radiyallahu ta'ala, had this conversation that if any of the two pass away, and if the other member marries, then in the hereafter, the husband or the wife will be with the partner who he or she married first. Now this applies to the lady only. If the husband passes away, and let's assume that the wife, through her own free choice, through her own free will, decides not to remarry, then she will be with her husband who she spent time with in this world. But if she decides to remarry, then she will no longer be with her first husband in the hereafter, rather she will be with the second husband. So they had so much love amongst themselves that this conversation did take place in their lifetime, that none would remarry. However, Abu Talha also mentioned to Umm Salamah that after my demise, you should remarry. And after the demise of Abu Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anha recited a dua and a supplication of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma jurni fi musibati wa khlufni khayran minha. O Allah, grant me reward in this calamity of mine, and grant me better. Grant me something far better than what I have right now. Because Salamah was emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally attached with her husband Abu Salamah, she could never ever imagine a husband more better and a husband more compassionate than her husband Abu Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But she thought to herself, let me make this application anyways. So she made this application, and her supplication was answered in the form of the Prophet ﷺ sending a proposal to her. Once this proposal reached her, at first she turned down the proposal, and she said that I am a lady who is unable to have children. So I am a lady who's unable to have children, number one. Number two, I have many orphan children to look after. And three, I possess a lot of ghayrat, self-honor. That means it will be difficult for me to live with your other wives. So the Prophet ﷺ, in reply to her comments, said that your children are my children, and I will help you look after your children. It is for this reason the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned it in a hadith to the closest effect, that I am the guardian of that person who has no guardian. So the Prophet ﷺ indeed did help look after her children. And in respect to the ghayrat issue, the self-honor issue, the Prophet ﷺ said that I will make dua for you, and inshallah this feeling or concern that you have, this feeling and concern will also be removed. When the Prophet ﷺ married Umm Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anha, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she felt a lot of pain and sorrow because she believed that the Prophet ﷺ's attention towards her will now be taken by another wife. And for a second wife or a third wife or a fourth wife to have these kind of feelings is completely natural. This is not against the Sharia to occupy and to entertain such thoughts. So it was well known that Salamah radiallahu anha was extremely beautiful and attractive. And Aisha radiallahu anha had a conversation with Hafsa radiallahu anha. And Hafsa radiallahu anha made this remark about Salamah radiallahu anha, that she's not as beautiful as people make her to be. When she made this remark, Aisha radiallahu anha says that right then at that moment, her position dropped in my eyes. But nonetheless, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted her beauty, then my negative remarks, my comments, cannot remove that beauty. So again, to have a conversation like this between wives or between women, this is completely normal and it's completely natural, and it does not go against the teachings of the Sharia. Salamah radiallahu anha was a very intelligent woman. Once she gave a very great suggestion and a great opinion which shows her sound reasoning and her sound judgment and her skills in expressing such judgment and opinions. The Prophet ﷺ had performed Umrah with his companions radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. And at that point, Sulh Hudaybiyah, the peace treaty, was already drawn up. And among the conditions, one condition was that for 10 years, there will be no war and no battle between Muslims and non-Muslims. That was one of the conditions. Second condition, that they will not be allowed to perform Umrah this year, and they must leave. So whilst they were in the state of Ihram, because they left Medina Munawwara with this intention that we will perform Umrah, they became extremely upset that we left with the intention of performing Umrah. However, now we are being told by the Prophet ﷺ that we cannot do so. So they were hesitant in following the instruction of the Prophet ﷺ in terms of removing the hair, either by shaving or by cutting, so that they can exit from the state of Ihram. So the Prophet ﷺ at that moment in time, he consulted with his wife Umm Salamah radiallahu anha by saying that, why aren't the Sahaba radiallahu listening to my instructions? Why aren't they obeying my commands? So Umm Salamah radiallahu anha said, I will give you a suggestion. Instead of giving them verbal instructions, why don't you first remove the hair from your own head and you exit the state of Ihram, and when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum see you doing this act, automatically this belief will be embedded in their minds and hearts that we must follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is exactly what happened. Now, who gave this suggestion? Who gave this opinion? It was none other than Umm Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anha. Again, from this we learn that the mothers at home, the wives at home, their role is to advise their husbands. And the husband's role is to make the correct decision in light of the Sharia, in light of his household circumstances, and in light of his financial situation, and in light of every single aspect that is usually taken into consideration. So Umm Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anha, when she was married to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she benefited the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in many ways. So one way that she benefited him was that she used to narrate many of his narrations, and she had a very good memory. She would recall the narrations and hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and thereafter transmit these narrations to the Ummah. Inshallah, more detail of the life of Umm Salamah radiallahu ta'ala will be discussed in part 2. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to understand and practice. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Sadaqallahu al-azim.